Police pulled me over and looked down at me not knowing I'm the chief of police's son. I, 21 years old, have also been taught not to do anything stupid around the police because of my skin color. For context, I'm 6'1", weighing at 180 pounds. I'm not the biggest guy, but I can tell other people are always alerted whenever I walk past them. Even if my dad is the chief of police, my mother has always told me that I should always put my hand on the dash and not reach out for anything. My mother put a dashcam inside my car where everything can be recorded, as well as the front and rear and also myself. I knew that I was going to get pulled over once and I thought I would never have to deal with any of the cops looking down on me because of my skin. Until recently, when I went out one morning and decided to go get gas from the gas station. I drove out and passed by a cop that was parked near the side of the road. I'm a slow driver and never really enjoyed going fast, so I knew that if he pulled me over, I wouldn't have gotten pulled over for speeding. I had all my windows down as well because it was hot and I enjoyed the wind going on my face while driving, so they know that I wasn't doing anything illegal. Random thoughts started going in my head and I started overthinking. They followed me for 10 minutes. Every corner I turned, they would turn. Every street I went into, they also went into. I started to freak out and tried calming myself down until they finally had their lights on. When I pulled over, I grabbed my wallet, insurance, and registration inside my cubby and immediately put all of it on top of my dash before the cop would come. By the time the cop was near my window, I had already had both hands on my steering wheel. I tried greeting the officer by telling him, "Good morning, officer," but he cut me off and just told me, "License and registration, please." He had a serious look and I told him that all of my documents is right here as I pointed at my dash. I then asked why I was getting pulled over and he told me that I was swerving in the road aggressively. I told him that I must have been nervous because you were following me. As I tried explaining myself, he told me to open my trunk. I looked at him confused and told him if there was a reason I needed to open my trunk. The officer stopped writing and looked up and told me, "Listen, kid, just pop the trunk and follow what I said before things get ugly." I responded if he had any probable cause for him to check my trunk. He looked at me again and asked me if I wanted to have the K9s come in and sniff my car or not. I looked at him shocked and I was completely speechless. I didn't know what to do. You can now check if there's a part 2 by pressing share and more. Police pulled me over and looked down at me not knowing I'm the chief of police's son part 2. The police officer sighed and looked at me again. I told him that it wasn't a problem because at this point I was already scared for myself. He grabbed my license and read my name. He looked at me and asked me if I was the chief's son. I responded yes and his mood lightened. He asked me why I didn't just tell him that I was the chief's son and I told him that I thought that I didn't need to. He proceeded to tell me that he was just gonna let me go with a warning. I proceeded to ask for his name and he ended up writing it down for me on a notepad. I went home shaking, and I couldn't believe what had happened. The fact that situation could have ended badly if he hadn't found out about my dad was even crazier to think about. I told my mom when I got home and she was furious. She called my dad, screaming at the phone and telling him that we got all the footage inside the dash cam and as well as the officer's name. My dad came home and talked to me about the situation. He also watched the video and grabbed the SD card that was inside the dash cam. He was deeply disturbed by what had happened and he told me that he was glad that I was safe. The next couple of days, I would ask my dad if there was any updates. The officer involved was put on administrative leave pending an investigation. My father wanted to make sure that everything was checked out fairly in the investigation. He was very determined that this situation would be solved his way and also had a talk with the entire force, showing the video to everyone about what had happened to me. The dashcam played a very crucial role in the investigation. The local news outlet ended up picking on the footage and it escalated it very quickly. It went viral on the internet and it sparked a lot of angry people across the community. The officer involved became the center of attention. Next thing you know, multiple people started coming forward telling their experiences with the same officer. There were multiple calls for justice across social media platforms and the public demanded action from the department. Even though my father was the chief of police, he had to deal with a lot of the stress that came with it, and I apologized to him. My father reacted quickly and concluded the officer with termination. The officer ended up having so much backlash from the public that he started receiving hate mail and threats from his home. Multiple people were outside his home and the news station was even there to try to interview him. That was the last I heard about him, and I could care less about that officer.